up, people of the internet? Am I going to look at you or the screen? Who knows? Maybe both. Anyway, this video is all about Serum karate chops, and it's about basically making Serum sound more analogy. And we're going to be emulating an idea in synthesis called analog drift. So if you know, you've seen people like deadmau5 or whoever using these big analog machines, like keyboards, there's buttons everywhere, there's lights flashing, it's big, it's heavy, it's expensive. One of the things that gives these analog synths some of their charm is the fact that there's this thing called analog drift where the overall tune of the entire synth is moving about a bit. So it's constantly going a little bit out of tune, back into tune, out of tune again, and it's not quite in tune. So technically you'd say maybe it sounds a bit wrong, but just gives it a bit more of an alive feel. It's definitely quite subtle. When you're still playing the notes in, it still sounds all right, but it makes the thing feel a little bit more alive and a little less straight and predictable. And we can program that thing we call analog drift into Serum, which is a soft synth. And we're going to be using the Matrix tab for that. So Matrix, which has nothing to do with The Matrix, the movie, or The Matrix 2, or The Matrix 3. It's in fact to do with the modulation stuff. And we're going to be using the chaos oscillator and another cool little thing that I'm going to show you. So let's generate, in fact, let's show you the final result because some of you might want to see that. So let's do a cut. Cool, wasn't that great? Let's actually make that. So we're just going to keep it nice and simple with a nice, normal, simple sound. Nice, simple saw-tastic. And then we're going to drag envelope 2 to a low pass filter, or the cutoff of one. So have a nice simple noise, maybe turn it up a bit. Oh, check it out, check it out. I'm going to kick it into monophony or monophonic mode just because, well, it's a good habit to get into for the sound. Dope bass line right there. Anyway, let's program in the important stuff that's actually interesting. So what we're going to do is going to be using predominantly the chaos oscillators, which if we have a look in the global tab are chaos 1 and chaos 2. And these are modulating sources that generate chaotic modulations, which I can actually show you. So if we go to the mod matrix and choose, say, chaos 1 as a mod source, and the destination being, say, global mast ton, which is short for master tuning, something like that, mast ton, then what you'll see is as I pull the amount slider right up, in fact, let's kick the type into bipolar mode. And as I hold down the note, check out what's happening to this little blue dot, which is basically showing you the result of the modulation. It's showing you what the modulation is doing. Check it out. Look at it go. It's all over the place. It's over there. It's moving about a bit. Oh, it's going a bit mad. It went over there for a little bit. It's coming back. It's coming back. It's over here. It's over there. It's everywhere. That's basically what the chaos oscillator is doing. So it's doing all this chaotic stuff. Now, one thing that's a bit strange with this chaos oscillator is every time you re-trigger a note, you see as I'm pressing it really fast, it restarts the chaos oscillator right in the middle, which isn't necessarily what we want. We want it to maybe start slightly to the left, slightly to the right, as well as doing the moving about as we're holding down the note. So consider this chaos 1 to be moving about for the sustain part of the note. But we want it to also be a little bit random in where it starts with the master tuning. So we can do that with something called note on rand 1. And then if we say pull that to the far limit and turn on master tuning as the destination as well. So now check it out what's happening. So if you have a look at this note on rand 1, see where the little blue dot is. Every time I trigger a note, in fact, let's kick it into bipolar mode so it goes both ways. Notice how it's starting at a different position in that region. So now we have a random start position for the master tuning every time we trigger a note, and then as we hold down the note, the chaos 1 oscillator moves it about in some weird and wonderful way. Now, remember I said subtlety was the key. You can see that right now because at the moment we cranked the amount to the max for both of these and it sounds bonkers. That's no good, or it is, or it isn't. In this case, it isn't. So what you want to do is ease back on it and have this variation of the master tuning, super subtle. And there's two ways we can do it. And we're going to use both because that's just the kind of fun and crazy guy I am. So the two ways we can do it is we have the amount slider. So if we say look at note on rand, we can simply pull it back. And the lower this amount is, the less it moves about. But what we can also actually do is use the output slider at the end to give us some more control. So that's like another overall amount slider. So what I personally like to do to give myself a lot of control is say move the amount to, I don't know, roughly halfway. And then I can also dial in the amount here. And then by controlling both of those, it gives me more fine control, especially when you're doing a tiny amount of modulation of what's going on. So we can see here, say for Chaos 1, as we pull the output down to say 10, see how little it's moving? But that's exactly what we want. We don't want it going like, Wah! We want it to be like that. Not Wah! Like this. Makes more sense, right? And then similarly for note on ran, so pull that back down to say 10, which basically divides the amount of modulation by 10 to give yourself a bit more control. So if I make it slightly more obvious, you should still be able to hear this modulation happening. So I'm pressing the same note. Try and hear really specifically that this frequency is moving up and down. So it's going quite a bit out of tune every time I trigger the note. So what we want to do now is simply dial it into taste. So I like to do it, well, basically super subtle. Super moon. Wasn't there a super moon yesterday? I totally missed that. Anyway, yeah, super subtle. Say something like... something like that even. It is super, super subtle and you can barely see this actual blue dot move. Because remember, this blue dot is going over the entire frequency range of the entire synth. So it's going right from like 20k down to 20 hertz. So it's a super huge range. So you probably won't see it do the modulations you want it to do, which is super, super subtle. We don't want it to actually change notes. We just want it to go slightly out of tune and then move around and come back and all that kind of good stuff. I like that. It's super subtle, and if you're not paying attention, you won't hear it. And that's kind of the point with this analog gear, is it's giving it a bit of subtle life that you don't consciously hear, but because there are those subtle variations, it sounds a lot less robotic and a lot less straight. It's more kind of this. And let's be honest, this isn't as good as this. And that's all I could really say on the matter. So not this. Definitely that. Not this. Definitely that. That's all you need to know about sound design and music in general. Genius.